I am Dr. Aravind Srinivasan, Chief Medical Officer and Director of Projects, Aravind Eye Care System. It's a pleasure to be with you all. We are going to be discussing several interesting things in this discussion. It is going to be the intersection of platform and purpose, which is very profound, and joy of doing something beautiful that outlives one's life. The third thing, which is very significant for all of us, is to emotionally connect with the purpose of the organization. And as a leader, communicate to people who are in the organization what they do adds meaning to the organization. And as a leader, connect to each individual in the organization to make the place a place where everybody thrives and everybody enjoys contributing to a larger cause.
Congratulations! You are tuned into Dov Baron's Leadership and Loyalty Show, the #1 podcast for Fortune 500 executives and those who are dedicated to creating a quantum leap in leadership. Your host, Dov Baron. He's an executive mentor to leaders like you, a contributing writer for Entrepreneur Magazine, CEO World, and he's been featured on CNN, Fox, CBS, and many other notable sites. Dov Baron is an international business speaker who was named by Inc. magazine as one of the top 100 leadership speakers to hire. Now, over to Dov Baron.
Welcome, dear friends, fans, and fellow aficionados of leadership excellence. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Leadership and Loyalty Podcast. I'm your host, Dov Baron. I'm here to assist you tapping into the one thing in your business that changes everything by transforming meaning into action. Curious to know more? Simply go to dovbaron.com. In the past, we have spoken a lot about different aspects of being on purpose. You know that it's a key focus for me. However, today I want to bring to you someone who understands an aspect of purpose that most of us miss, that being how to bring purpose together with platform. Those two things go together in a way that you might not have thought of that's going to transform your business. Well, wait until we really get into that, because our guest today is Dr. Aravind Srinivasan. His organization caters to a population of 100 million. On top of that, the organization is 5 times more efficient than any competitor because of the factors that we'll talk about today. So it's going to be a vast and intriguing conversation. Stay tuned. As always, we need your help in staying relevant. So please go over to wherever it is that you tune into the show. And we really need your help to make sure that we stay relevant. So do us a favor, rate, review, subscribe to the show. It makes a huge difference. If you are a regular listener, big thank you to you for making us the #1 podcast globally for Fortune 500 listeners. And we are honored and grateful to be cited by Inc.com as the #1 podcast to make you a better leader. All right, let's dive in. As I said earlier, our guest today is Dr. Aravind Srinivasan. I think I got it right. Dr. Aravind Srinivasan. He is the medical director, chief medical officer of the Aravind Eye Hospital in Chennai, India. He's the director of projects, Aravind Eye Care System. Aravind is not only a medical doctor, he has a master's in ophthalmology and an MBA with specialization in strategy from the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. He has evolved himself, his expertise, and his organization. He has been at the forefront of everything that's gone on, catering to a population of 100 million, like I said, in eye care, and an organization that is 5 times more efficient than any of its competitors. The Aravind Eye Care System has evolved into a large eye care service provider. Currently, this organization has 7 territorial care centers, 7 secondary care centers, 6 community clinics, 105 primary eye care centers across India. And during the year of 2021, Aravind was able to extend its outpatient service to over 4,327,000 people, and able to provide sight restoration surgery, surgical or laser procedures to over 500,000 people, of which 50% of those patients received either eye care for free or a steeply subsidized cost. So they're doing magnificent work. They're doing it at half the cost. They're doing it at 5 times the efficiency and coming out on top. We can learn a lot from this. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and help me to welcome Dr. Aravind.
Thank you.
Well, after me bludgeoning your name to death, we will continue. Thank you. I really appreciate you being with us. I know you're all the way from India, 12 and a half hours difference. We appreciate you staying up late to do this with us and taking your time. So let's start right at the beginning where we always like to start, which is, what is the origin story of what gives your life meaning? Life is busy, it's complex, there's a lot of things going on. And oftentimes we don't stop to actually consider, what is the origin story of what gives our lives meaning? What is it for you?
I'm a surgeon. I started my career as a surgeon. I continue to operate. When you're able to give sight to somebody and see how their life changes in front of you, and cataract surgery is a miracle by itself. People can see their world much better tomorrow, the next day. And that multiplied by 500,000 times. If that is the kind of impact you could make being part of this organization, and then you realize you are a blessed person to be part of this organization. And so many people have given so much to you over the decades, and you want to give it back. When you finish your duties in this world, when you go back, when you meet your maker in the eye, you should tell him that, I did the best I can. I did more than what you gave me. That's what keeps me driven and driving to ensure that the best is always given.
Now, this is we do a lot of work privately, our company, and we've had many guests on here who come from the world of multi-generational family business. And this is a family business. This was your uncle, I believe?
My uncle was the founder.
Right, yes. The founder. So when was that? What year was that?
1976.
So 76. So you guys have been around a while, 50 years almost, yes. Right? What was your original inclination to go down that path? Is your father a surgeon?
No, my father was a construction man. He was an engineer.
Right.
But he was part of the organization.
Yeah. So you went into the medical side of it. You got into that business. And oftentimes, this is it, multi-generational families, there is a resistance. I'm my own man. I'm not you. I'm not following your path. And so that resistance happens, and we go off and we rebel, and we smoke some funny smelling stuff, and we party a little too hard, and we do things that are not part of that. Did you go through that rebellious side of it for you, or did you just go right in there and stay with it?
I did rebel. And I wanted to get away, and I wanted to do biomedical engineering, establish my own identity. And I was overwhelmed by what the family had done and overawed. So I wanted to create something on my own. And but what I realized was I fell in love with surgery, Don. That's what kept me in the organization. I didn't realize how therapeutic it was personally to me to be able to heal somebody. It requires a lot of discipline, a lot of training. So that's what kept me going. And it took me a decade to find myself. That then I had to figure out, I went and did my MBA. And that was a very important step for me, because I realized I didn't want to be a pure play ophthalmologist, pure play clinician. I also wanted to be part of the organizational building process, institution building process. So that led me to go get my MBA. And then gradually over the years, you realize, when people talk to you, when people share with you, so many people getting vision and come back, you realize you're part of a phenomenal organization. You realize the founders, in this case, my own family, had a tremendous vision. They were visionary in setting up the organization, and they prescribed to values which are way ahead of their times. They said nobody should be blind. We should be able to give sight. Maximizing profit is not the only goal. So all those things, when practiced, when you're soaked in that day after day after day, and then you love surgery. So it kind of comes back to you. And then it makes you reflect a little more. You were introducing this platform, right? That's where this whole concept of platform came. What's a platform? Your birth by itself is a platform, where you're born, to which family, what's your education that you've got. It belongs to the platform. the network that you have as part of a family or the organization, the net worth that you have, and also your health. If you're born with a congenital disability, your health. And finally, you need serendipity. You need luck. With all these things have to fall into place. And then when you kind of see all this, then you realize what a beautiful platform somebody has given you. And you don't realize when you start. But when you go through the journey, the light bulb starts turning on, and you realize how fortunate you are. And
I think that from a psychological point of view, normal is whatever you get used to, and what that means is that it's very easy to take things for granted. On one side, it's very easy to put up with abuse because you don't know anything else, and on the other side, it's you take for granted the many gifts that you've been given, and usually there's a wake up with that. There's something that happens that allows us to go, wow, I'm an idiot. Wow, I'm an idiot. I'm rebelling against something that is a wonderful platform, or has been a tremendous gift. I mean, I know that in the last couple of months, India has surpassed China in the largest population in the world. That's a lot of people. And a very, very, very lot of those people are desperately poor. And, you're born into this family that has built something that is magnificent. But in that journey of rebellion, we're not really looking at, the platform I've been given. We're looking at how do I identify as an individual? How do I separate myself? So how did you bring those two things together? Because that's what I'm really interested in, is that part of you that wanted to rebel, natural, healthy, psychologically, I've got to individuate. And on the other side, recognizing this amazing platform that I've been given, bringing those two things together. How did you reconcile that with yourself?
I think two things which immediately comes up to my mind. One is the work that I did kept me anchored. As I said, doing surgery kept me anchored day after day. That was important. And the second thing was the family also was very magnanimous. When you go and rebel, when you talk, when you look back, some of those ideas were not practical. They put up with you because they somewhere see a flash of light in you. There is a potential. And that magnanimity, and it grows on you. It's very contagious. And then you also realize over a period of time, you reflect on what you're doing, what you need to do. That's where I like this whole concept of platform. It's not only what you do within the organization. You also create an identity outside the organization.
Yes.
Organization creates that platform, but it is not only for the benefit of the organization. So when that recognition came from outside, when that recognition came both from within and outside, then that's when the stability started coming.
I see.
That was the turning point when I realized, and I was about 40 by that time.
Right. And this is important for people to realize that this is not something that happens when you're 19, usually. It's something that you've got to take a few knocks in the world and go through some things. And I have 6 grandchildren, but one of my grandchildren is 2, and it was my wife's 60th birthday. And so my granddaughter called to wish her Aji happy birthday. Right. So she's singing happy birthday, and her parents are singing for her to lead her. Right. Happy birthday, dear Aji. And she sings happy birthday, dear Zara, because that's her name. Right. And I said, this is the only moment in time where narcissism is beautiful and it's funny, because that's the stage of our development. But unfortunately, many people don't grow out of that, and it becomes a heck of a lot less cute when you're 22, 42, 62. But it is a necessity to evolve from that place. And I'm really, it's. Did you have the internal conflict with the family? Was, about the direction? Because I know you took over and you've ran things and you've changed a lot of things. Was that conflictual, or was that, because they had this grand vision to move forward, but you had the grand vision of evolving the process. Am I right in that?
Yeah. Taking over is not the word, but the organization was growing very rapidly.
Yes.
So there were enough and more opportunities. So for people like me who was hungry, who wanted to, prove myself, want to get an identity for myself, there was enough and more to do. So I think there is a boundary within which you can work, right? I mean, there is a value framework. Those boundaries, if I didn't transgress the boundaries, the family was okay.
Right.
So I fortunately for me, I was within the boundary. I was not a black sheep that went outside the boundary. So within the boundary, they allowed me a lot of leeway. And then you gradually get to the center. And then you realize that's how it happened to me. And it's a marathon. I'm still running. I'm still learning. But now it's much more focused. You are not wasting your energy. You're not diverting your attention. You're focused. You know where you want to go. And interestingly, what I found, Don, was there are a lot more opportunities when you quieten down within.
Yes. Yes.
So when you're more loud within, more aspirational, and also aspirational is a positive word, but in a negative sense, you want to prove one-upmanship on the other person, then you miss a lot of good opportunities.
Yeah, even because you become competitive rather than collaborative.
Absolutely. Even people who want to help you are unfortunately are not able to.
Yes.
So I think it is important for you to get to the rhythm, as they call a zone.
Mm-hmm. Get in the zone,
If you're in a zone, then you realize that's where the platform becomes beautiful. Because now the platform is pushing you up to run.
Right.
It's not your own energy you're running. It's the platform pushes you up. Every step of yours, there is a spring that pulls you, that pushes you up.
So before we go into more details of that, I want to sort of address this at an audience level, because you and I had a previous conversation, and a lot of people don't think they have a platform. Right? They go, well, I'm not just Aravind. I didn't have this family, and they were doing these magnificent things. I'm just a small-time entrepreneur, or I'm a CEO, and I'm really powerless CEO because I have to answer to the board. And I get paid a lot of money, but it's a pretty puppeted situation. What would you say to somebody about recognizing the platform that they maybe don't see they have? Because you were in that space.
See, 90% of the world has a low platform and have a low purpose. Your people who drive your taxis, your people who bring your food, they are born in such a situation. They have not been educated. So a lot of things goes back to that platform, all those elements which are not favorable. And so when you have all these things favorable, now I read somewhere, if somebody makes $100,000 a year, you belong to 0.01% of this world.
Yep.
So, I mean, you have to be privileged to be able to think that you're already 0.01% of the world. How much more do you want? How big is the platform you want to do something? I'm reminded of a quote, by Leonard Cohen. Ring the bell that you can still ring. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light comes in. There is a crack in everything. Nobody is perfect. Bill Gates is not perfect. Warren Buffett is not perfect. They're all trying to do their best. They were at that moment of their life which took them to where they are. And each of us are in that moment. If we can do something to our ability, I think there is always an opportunity. And it need not be money. It can be a nice word. It can be comforting to doing something. It can be some nice gestures every day to your staff. You may not get along with your bosses. They may not give you space, but you are a boss. Are you giving enough space to people who report to you?
Yes.
Are they enjoying every day coming to the office? You can't carry the anger and pass the anger down.
Yeah, it's a very good point. I really don't think that people recognize it. I mean, this is one of the lovely things about that conversation with you, was this idea of purpose and platform, and that recognizing that most of us are born with a low platform and a low purpose. And by the way, if you're born with a low platform and a low purpose, that is not the destiny of your life. It's just the way that many people, I know that many people in India, I have many Indian friends, and I certainly know in the UK where I was born, many people just accept it. It's just like, I was born in a ghetto, in a very, very low working class environment. Nobody seemed to have any purpose other than waiting for Saturday night to go drink 8 pints of beer and get pissed. That was my purpose. It was not mine, but I understood that. And so there's no money, there's no prospects, there's just a crappy job. And the only aspiration is getting drunk on Saturday night and maybe having a good fight. But when I look around the people who I went to school with and the people who were my friends, and I can remember sitting in the pub with those boys when I was 16, and we're all talking about getting out. And I'm the only one who did. Yeah. I'm the only one who decided to travel the world, to study, to start businesses, to do all those things. And I was ridiculed at every possible turn because people, I don't think that they're mean. I just think that we're tribal. We want to keep the people in our tribe with us. And so I think that sometimes if you're going to be high purpose, and I want to hear your point on this, I think if you're going to be high purpose and you're from low platform, you are going to get resistance, massive resistance. And so you have to raise your platform. And that's done oftentimes just simply by network, by, your net worth becomes your network, or your network becomes your net worth. So you've got to get yourself away from your comfort zone, away from your platform by being driven by this purpose. But I don't think enough people recognize that they can break through from that. And I think, it's my opinion, it's not the truth, that sometimes people are lazy about purpose. They're lazier. It's like, oh, it's too much work. You're working with all these people in your organization. How do you get them through that process? Through that connecting the platform and the purpose for themselves?
Don, the crime is not when you're lazy, when you have a low platform. That's acceptable.
Sure.
You're born, it is difficult, challenging. But if you have a high platform and then if you're lazy, that's a crime.
Right.
That's not acceptable. I would like to share a metaphor. I look at it like a tree, right? Instead of saying who is low, who is high, it's like who is the root and who is the leaf.
Right.
Both have a function.
Yes.
The root has a function. It has to take the water, take the nutrients from the soil and give it. And these are people at the lower levels. You need a taxi driver. You need somebody to work in your iron factories, in your coal factories. The world has to move on. Somebody has to cook the food. Somebody has to be a farmer. Life is needed, right? They nurture the life. And your CEOs of the world, your people are all the leaves. They also have a function. The problem is they forget the function. Their function is they will have to catch the light and pass it on. The chlorophyll is passed on. So it's the symbiosis, it's the synergy that makes life so beautiful. Instead of, I can't find a bus driver. I can't tell him you're lazy. He's working hard. But opportunities were not available. Maybe he's the only breadwinner in the family. He was not able to take it. There are circumstances which makes who you are and who I am.
Yes.
So it is very easy to say something and it may not be the truth. They have really struggled, but that's the best that they have reached.
Yeah, you see, I don't think that following your purpose is about necessarily coming up with this massive thing that changes the world. Your purpose can be something that others might view as very no big deal. But one of the things I say to people all the time is, please understand that courage is subjective. Something that's incredibly easy for me may be incredibly difficult for you, and something that's incredibly easy for you may be incredibly difficult for me. And so it's the same thing as when I meet for instance, I'm in some country and I meet a taxi driver, and I always love to talk to taxi drivers, and it's like they've always got great stories, and I always ask, how long have you been driving? Do you like it? Those are my first two questions. Do you like it? And what do you like about it? What don't you like about it? Like, what does it give you in life that you couldn't get anywhere else? And that question I'm asking them is a purpose question. What does it give you that you couldn't get anywhere else? And it's mind-blowing, the answers I get from people, and oftentimes it's like, I work a lot of hours and I miss out on these things and that, but I meet these wonderful people and they have these wonderful conversations. And I take those back to my wife and to my children or to my husband. And it's like, yeah, that's the juice. That's the juice. So, go ahead.
No, I said, I'm thinking about my mother as you speak. My mother is a homemaker.
Yes.
All she did was gave us 3 good meals, took care of us, nurtured us. She was not in the surgery doing surgery. She did not do anything. But I think she gave the platform to people like me. And many people whom we think are not doing anything, from a conventional way of looking at things, somebody is successful or not. I think my mother is a phenomenal success because without her, I wouldn't be here.
I love that. I think that's really beautiful, is recognizing who has given you that platform, who gave you the leg up that you maybe take for granted. Yes. And it was even in your language, and I'm not doing this to correct you. I just want to have people grasp it, because you said, my mother was just a homemaker. There is no just. There's no just. Like, I had a lot of problems in my family of origin, but there were things they did that if they hadn't have done them, it wouldn't have given me the platform to do the things I've done. Right. So it's like we minimize and just others. And I think, because I'm more aspirational, I think you need to minimize and your own stuff and say, it's just this. So I've got to do better. I've got to do more. I can make a bigger difference. And you have done that with the organization. And in the second part of the show, I want to talk a lot about the evolution of this organization, because what you've done, being 5 times more efficient and the throughput and all the rest of it is, as our friend Adrian talked about, it is mind-blowing, to be giving away almost 50% of your services and still be so much more efficient and highly profitable. Like, at a business sense, whatever business you're in, you got to stop and go, okay, how do they do that? How do you become 5 times more efficient and give away about 50% of your thing and be phenomenally profitable and continue to grow? Like, what is the magic sauce here? Whatever business you're in. So I want to go into that in the second part of the show. Before we go there, I would love for you to tell people how they can find out more about you, about your organization, about any of the resources that you have available.
The website of the organization is www.aravind.org, aravind.org. That has all the details about the organization. Before we close the first part, Don, I would like to share the quote from our founder. I think a lot of this wisdom came from our founder. Oh, and yeah? I'll end with this quote. He says, intelligence and capabilities are not enough. There must be a joy of doing something beautiful. Arvind's story is all about the joy of doing something beautiful. And every individual's purpose in life is about joy of doing something beautiful, not intelligence or capabilities.
Do you think that we forget about joy?
Yes, we have so much of noise in our heads.
Yes.
So much happening, so much thoughts, so many things happening. And the world is also very busy, keeps you busy. Yeah. The social media, we just don't realize small things, subtle things have more joy.
Yeah, I've often said in my work that happiness is often in a big thing that is transitory, but joy is in the small things that are always there. Absolutely. It is the laughter of my grandchild. It is the way the sun set last night, the way the light came into the room this morning. Those are all joyful moments, not the sense of making a difference in the world, the gift of being able to speak to people like you and so many wonderful people who are doing amazing things. Like, yeah, those things are external, but it's what it gives me that I can give to the world, and that's the joy. I think that people forget joy. We live in a world of happiness. Everybody's geared towards happiness, and we forget about the joy. And I'm always making that distinction for people. Like, happiness is an externally stimulated thing that if I tickle you and I stop tickling you, your happiness is gone. But joy is in your heart. I can't touch it. If it's true joy, it's in your heart, and it can be brought to any moment, whether you're in a horrendous situation or a fabulous one.
Joy is your heart smiling.
Exactly. Well, I would go further. I would say, because it's my language, joy is when your soul is speaking directly to your heart and working through your limbs.
Absolutely. Beautiful. That was Dr. V.
Okay. Beautiful. All right. Well, we're going to come back in part 2 of the show. We're going to talk more about the founder of the organization, what the original vision was, and the transformation that has taken place under Dr. Aravind to become this incredibly efficient organization with a throughput that is mind-blowing while making such a significant difference. We're going to come back. We're going to talk more with Dr. Aravind about this connection between platform and purpose and driving it forward and what it can do for your business. So stay curious, my friends. Stay curious. We're going to be back in just one click with part 2 of the show. See you soon.